Buddy, friends, and future friends. Thanks for your comments and just joining me live when you can. Appreciate it. It's been a bit of a tiring week, but I want to keep putting things out there. I thought I'd continue my story today. I was going to do that on Wednesdays, but today is Thursday, so we'll just make do with what it is. Trying to remember where I left off last time, but I'll just start in college years a little bit. I was undergrad mechanical engineering, still figuring myself out. Don't know if I mentioned going to grad school at that point, but I didn't want to be like everybody else. I guess a little arrogant at the time, and uh, didn't know what else I wanted to do, and didn't want to necessarily leave the area. So I uh, used a contact I had in the area who was actually running a research lab on campus, and gave him my resume and ended up getting a research assistantship um, with that. So I actually got paid to go to grad school in engineering. Uh, the major downside was I didn't like what I was doing. My advisor was not extremely helpful. He was more like my dad, so it wasn't encouraging, and so I didn't have my heart into it much. So I got more C's in grad school than I got in my undergrad, and I actually had to pull my grade up in order to get high enough to graduate. So that was kind of a sad testament to what was going on at the time. Uh, that I really wasn't into what I was doing. If I'd go back, I would love to have asked for more of what I was interested in. They had cool stuff going on at the time, Formula cars. They were developing hybrid automotive stuff going on, the new suspension things and cars, lots of research in that, which would have been pretty cool. But didn't do that. So, but I wrestled through grad school there, and had an interesting adventure where I was loved mountain biking. One of the guys I was with, mountain biking, liked to do extreme stuff, so he decided that we could go mountain bike up the power line cut up the mountain, and we got partway up and it became so steep we really weren't able to go up anymore. So we went back down, and I went first, and because I was pretty fast downhill, but it was steeper than anything I'd ridden on. It accelerated rather quickly. Got about a bump that was in the trail. I got kicked up off my bike upside down, landed on my head, my left shoulder, then rolled on my back and slid the rest of the way. Felt it was okay, and I sat up. My left arm fell down where it's not supposed to. So um, that was a turning event in my life there a bit. I ended up later on having to get reconstructive surgery. I didn't realize I didn't have health insurance at the time, so I ended up having to pay for it out of pocket. My parents fortunately covered that. But that ties into meeting my wife. She had just moved to the area for a job. Her sister and brother in law were in grad school there for chemistry, and Christine had a degree in psychology from Wheaton College and found this really cool job in the area of helping uh, mild to moderately mentally and physically challenged students to transition to get life skills. So she showed up there, and she got involved in Navigators, and um, we had a fall retreat we were going to go to, and somehow I connected up with her, met her at some point shortly previous to that. Wasn't too far into knowing each other, but we were going to ride together to go to the retreat. And a few days before that ride was when I tore my shoulder. Um, so I don't remember why, but we ended up taking her truck, which was a stick shift truck. She drove, I sat in the middle, and one other guy rode with us in this little Ranger, and I was shifting as she was driving and pushing the clutch in and operating the other pedals. So that was really awkward, um, but definitely makes for a good story. But I had stepped out of navigator leadership at that point and was really just kind of burned out and pressing on to trying to figure out my life. But I got through grad school. I'll speed it up here. Um, for now. Got finally finished it. It took me 3 years. last year was excruciatingly long trying to write a thesis that I didn't understand what in the world I was doing, but my advisors seemed to think I was making sense. So, anyway, did that, uh, defended it, got my degree, and but I had by that point I hated engineering. I didn't like anything I had been doing. Didn't want to do it. Still didn't want to leave state college because I just didn't know what was going on. Um, and Christine was still there, and we were on again, off again, friends. She wasn't ready to engage in a relationship. I was, and that caused all kinds of problems that we can talk about at some point, probably. Uh, but to stay in the area, I actually took a job with Gary Brown Fine Home Building. Gary, one of my best friends, you might be watching this at some point. Thank you very much for what you offered there and what you continue to offer in my life, and my blessing to know you and your family. But I started working for Gary for not much per hour, uh, building custom homes. And it was sweetest 3 years of my life. Uh, Learned a lot of hands-on stuff as well as becoming part of a family. All his kids call me Uncle Rich. It's been really fun to do that. And Gary got me through the first engagement and breakup with Christine, because we were engaged twice and got married only once, and we're still married 22, almost 22 years later. But after 2 years of doing construction work and having 7 years of college education in engineering, I thought I'd give engineering a try. Started looking at jobs, ended up getting a job in the bearing industry, which is not what I wanted to get into because I didn't like doing it in grad school, so why in the world would I want to do it outside of grad school? But anyway, still didn't know what I wanted to do, or still didn't have courage enough to actually pursue more of my interests. So I ended up taking that job, moving down to Atlanta, I think about 700 and some miles away. Place we never thought we would go. Neither of us planned on living in the South, but we have been here for 20 years, which is way longer than we ever thought. But came down, got a job with Torrington Bearings doing um, research oriented stuff and processing, and then didn't like it. My advisor there, manager, was awful. And we were asked 2 years into the job, I had started exploring part-time grad school here in counseling. Loved it. Was good at it. Gave me life. Was Christian based, so it had that soul spiritual part of it that really made uh, much more sense of understanding people, and started putting more of my spiritual journey, my emotional journey, my relational journey together into a package that started impacting my life even more. After part time of that for a year, we were asked to relocate to New Hampshire for a job, and I said no. And I started a handyman home repair business and went to grad school there and loved it. Had a good old time. Um, but during that time, I had a whole lot of mental challenges. Uh, After Christine went to grad school, we ended up determining that I had a mood disorder, and similar to bipolar, but not nearly as kind of drastic. But it had definitely made our life down here much more challenging. And I had definitely times of not wanting to be around anymore, uh, thinking of hurting myself or killing myself, just giving up, overloaded with emotions. I was pretty volatile at times. I had lots of my own issues and troubles and heartaches that um, I was still carrying around. But when Christine graduated in '08, she realized I needed some help and had probably that. And fortunately, met a psychiatrist at a continuing ed um, class I was at, and he struck me very as somebody I could really trust, because he put up a picture of a stick figure, and then a person whose drawing was supposed to match the stick figure, and it was horribly not even close to it, and it was just a stick figure. So, but then he changed to the next slide, which showed this really intricate pencil drawing of a water wheel and stone wall with amazing detail, like a picture. And he said that was the same guy that drew the kind of really inaccurate stick figure from the previous slide. And then he said that was him. So that allowed me to reach out to him to say, hey, could you help me? Because I've got stuff going on that isn't good. So Christine and I went and met with him. We spent a couple years figuring out a chemical concoction, otherwise known as medications, to help with anxiety, depression, mood stability, and saved my life, really, and saved my marriage, saved my relationship with my kids. Uh, and that experience increased my desire to help people and put together even more how my life really lined up with helping people. Because not only did I have the skills to interact, the people skills, the intuitiveness, the insight, but I also had a fair amount of personal struggles and life experiences that allowed me to connect with people. And one of my phrases that I use is welcome to humanity. Because we're all broken, we all have issues, we all have stuff we need to work on and address. And I'm no different than you, just maybe further along in some ways and have some more information. So that was basic from engineer to counselor. The counseling practice has been bouncing around because I was still independent, didn't want to trust people. So I tried to start my own practice out of our church. It kind of half worked, but I was playing Superman, bouncing back and forth between preparing somebody's house and seeing clients. So I'd be changing someplace, usually at the church, put on nice clothes, talk to somebody, and then change my clothes back to work clothes, construction stuff, and go back and work on somebody's house. After a few years of doing that, I decided it really wasn't a very good, stable place, and the church wasn't some place we were really jiving with anymore. So I joined a practice in Johns Creek and got my license. Worked up there for 6.5 years. Met some cool people. And then we started this place down here. And I might have covered this in the last video now that I'm talking out loud. So if I'm redundant, I apologize. Hopefully it's at least good to hear it again, right? It's good for me to say it again, I guess. But also through all of that, there are definitely some sexual issues. My dad was pretty messed up and twisted around in his sexuality and really confused mine. So brought that into my marriage, which made that part of our life also challenging and connecting, disconnecting. And, basically, you could call it I have intimacy issues as well. And you could almost a reactive attachment disorder. That's the idea of when you try to get close to somebody, when you do get close to somebody, you get afraid of being too close and too vulnerable. So you react and pull away in kind of an attempt to get some distance and some safety and some really reduce your anxiety. And that's not exactly what people want in their marriage. So it was definitely a roller coaster experience for me as well as Christine. Um, and then sexuality obviously comes into the relationship connection. And so the reactive sort of attachment stuff happened physically as well. Not that I did physical reacted, but I could get close and then I kind of distance myself again. So I did specializations in Christian sex therapy in grad school to get a better understanding of what that was like as well. So I can offer some insight into some of the sexual issues, dysfunctions, confusion in that, and also sexual addiction. Pornography was alive and active in my house growing up, so exposed to that early on, and kind of carried that struggle through a good bit of my adult life, and that kind of interferes with connection and intimacy as well. But have wrestled through and broken that addictive type of behavior, but know the ramifications of that over years. So I can relate to guys that way. And one of the other topics I've been sort of studying for it's probably almost 30 years now is the idea of what's masculine and what is feminine. And early on, I got exposed to a Bible study called The Five Aspects of Man and the Five Aspects of Woman. And those brought a biblical understanding of what it means to be masculine. It looks at it, how it was originally created, what did the fall and sin do to it, and what does it look like in the redeemed form. And that information, is stuff I still use for now, for helping people now, and to understand their gender, understand the other gender, and how they work together. And I'm sure I'll be talking about that a little more in another video at some point, but it is fascinating. And I started looking more at other parts of masculinity, the breadth of our emotions, the depth of our emotions, our greatest fears, our greatest fear of failure, and how does that play out? How does that tie into our life story and the messages? John Eldredge, shout out to you. Probably won't ever watch this video, but great author insight, thinks a lot like I do. Not everybody cares for every author, so if you don't like John, I no problem. But he has helped me connect the artist with the outdoors, in nature, sort of more stereotypical masculine parts of life as well. So that's pretty cool to recognize more of what masculinity is and how it plays into marriage, how it plays into life, and learning about femininity. And your greatest fear is abandonment or rejection, and they have 5 aspects as well that correlate and connect a bit with the 5 aspects of man, and bringing those 2 ideas into helping people with their marriages as well. Because a lot of times I think marriages can be radically helped by getting education around how the other gender thinks, perceives things, communicates, what their greatest fears are, what their values are, and coming from the 5 aspects studies as well as different studies on masculinity, different books I've read. Seem to have it's made a difference in my life, and I tell people I've been able to speak woman a whole lot more, and it's kind of really amazing when I sit in a session with a female and her husband, or just a female, that I can speak in a way that they feel very understood, and that just confirms to me that what I've learned about women and how y'all function and how you think and what your deep heart deal is and what words you use and how you communicate, that it is true. And to educate guys on that transforms their marriage. So that's a bit of a pulling it together of how I went from engineering to counseling and some of the things in sexuality, relationships, gender, trauma, and parenting, which I didn't totally talk about, but pulling that together to be the counselor I am, and have been working in this field for 16 years and enjoy it and want to share now that stuff with all of you. So tune in. Hopefully tomorrow I'll get to say a little bit. My day is busy, but be able to talk about a different topic. So thanks for listening. Thanks for all you who've tuned in and tuned out. Whoever's watching me now, I have no idea, but hello. And I will catch you all again. Peace, blessings to you. Take care.